Ta-da! All right. We're going to be in Revelation chapter... Oh, most of you are here right now. But I won't ignore you, I promise.
They're just counterbalancing.
Okay. We're going to be in Revelation chapter 11 today. We're just moving right along.
Yeah, 11. Woo. Yeah. Just seeing Luke. Weird.
And Sister Kate found my beloved Bible this week that's been through the flood literally, but man, I like this one. All right. We're going to recap a little bit because we didn't meet last week. In Revelation 8, I think 13. Yeah, I'm going to read Revelation 8:13. We're going to just kind of get us back online. And I beheld and I heard an eagle flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. Dun, dun, dun. And so that's the three woes, the announcement of the three woes. And the first woe was those things that it reads like they're like scorpions that go around and they sting, and everyone's in agony when they get stung, but not Yah's people. We're cool. And then the second one, chapter 9, the second woe, chapter 9, around verse 12, it says, One woe is past, and behold, there come two more woes hereafter. And the second woe, I think we covered it last time, or if not that, the week before that, was when the four angels at the Euphrates, they block up the Euphrates, and the army comes across with a bazillion people in it. And then also in the second woe, excuse me, was that secret book, that secret scroll that he said, eat this, and it tasted like honey, but it was bitter in his stomach. And we talked about that last time. Well, the second woe is not over. It continues here where we're going to start today in Revelation chapter 11. So verse 1. And actually, you know what? I think I'm going to read what we're going to cover today, and then we'll go back. So chapter 11, verse 1. And there was given me a reed like unto a rod. And the angel stood, saying, Rise, and measure the temple of Elohim, and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court, which is without the temple, leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, the nations, and the Goy, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before Elohim of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth, devouring their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have the power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have the power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all the plagues as often as they will. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom, and Egypt, Mitzrayim, where also our Lord, our Yeshua, our Master, was crucified. And they of the people of kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth. And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from Elohim entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And they heard a great voice from heaven, saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. And the same hour there was a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted, and gave glory to Elohim of heaven. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe comes quickly. Oh. Okay, we're done. No, that's what we're going to cover today. That's what we're going to look at. Let's go back to verse 1 and 2. There was given to me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. But that which was without the temple, leave out, don't measure it. Okay. When it says measure here, here's a measuring device. Go measure this temple. The word measure means more than just go, okay, that's 32 by 46. It means to weigh, to assess. Have you heard that? You have been weighed, you have been measured, and you have been found wanting. Right? Yeah. That's the sense of measuring it when it says to measure it. And so if you weigh something, if you measure something, you assess something, you know that thing when you're done, which goes towards ownership of that thing. And also measuring is judgment. It's like judgment is coming. You are being weighed. You are being measured. You are being assessed. And so you are being judged. And really what this gets to in a nutshell is that Yah is in command. He's having his guy measure this thing so that he knows what it is, and so that no matter what happens, and we're going to talk about this temple a little bit today, no matter what happens in, with, or through this temple, it doesn't matter. Yah is in command. Yah is in charge. Just like when, and we're going to get to this too later, when Moses is going against Pharaoh, and he says, let my people go. If you don't, we're going to have this flood. If you don't, we're going to do this. If you don't, we're going to do this. And Pharaoh, when we read about that, it says Yah hardens Pharaoh's heart. See, Yah was in control there. Pharaoh wasn't letting the people go because it wasn't Yah's timing. And so that's kind of what we get the sense of here when we read this. Now, this temple that he says, given to me, and rise and measure the temple of Elohim, temple of God. Kind of think back in history. First we have the tabernacle, the tents. And who were we just talking to about this? About sewing the goat skins and sewing the badger skin? Was that you that we were having this conversation?
About goat hair.
Yeah, and so I just thought it was interesting that we're going here today. So first we've got the tabernacle, the tent in the wilderness, and that was a type or a temporary version of what was coming next, which was the temple, right? When they finally get to the promised land and they build the first temple. Do y'all remember what happened to the first temple? Babylon, right? The Babylonians come in. Temple's gone. They're taken away to Babylon, captivity. They come back and they rebuild the temple, which is a cool story that happens. And so that temple stands. That temple is there until 70 AD. And who crunched that temple?
Romans.
The Romans crunched that temple. That was the second temple, if you will. Daniel, the book of Daniel, we can read, he describes the third temple. This is that third temple that we're reading about right now, yet to be built. Let's turn, very beginning of Revelation, I told everybody to read Matthew 24. Let's go back to Matthew 24, verse 15. Matthew 24, verse 15, because Yeshua is talking about this temple. This third temple yet to be built. Matthew 24, verse 15 and 16, I think. This is what Yeshua says. When ye shall therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. This is in the temple. This is when you see this happening. Whosoever reads this, let him understand. Then let him which be in Judea flee into the mountains. When you see this happen in this third temple, you better get out of there because bad things are fixing to happen most immediately. So that's what Yeshua's talking about. And then Paul also kind of mentioned it. We're not going to turn there, but if you're interested, you can write it down. 2 Thessalonians 2, chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. He's getting to the second temple there too. Now, I think everybody here probably knows there's some Jews out there want to rebuild the temple. Right? They want to rebuild it. There's guys that are practicing to be priests, and they've evidently got some kind of battle drill where, Alex carries this part, I carry this part, you carry that part, ready, go! And they go and they set the altar up really fast, and they do these things, and they've been practicing it so they can go. During one of the wars that Israel had with their neighbors, there was a general, because where does the temple supposed to go? Do y'all know? In Jerusalem. Do you know what's there right now? The Dome of the Rock. And who controls Dome of the Rock? Muslims control it. Well, there was some war where there was like some Israeli general that was going to take it. Like, he was ready to go. And there were people, these little, I think of them as like emergency firefighters or, firemen or something, the temple guys that were going to go set up the altar real quick. And they didn't, because it wasn't time, or he was told you better not, or something. But they want to rebuild the temple. They plan to do this. They practice doing that. And yet, they don't read Revelation. They're not reading this part, right? They just want to rebuild it. Now, they do read Daniel, and they know about that. But this is the third temple that we're reading about, and this we know. It will be rebuilt. Some people think soon. The Jews are waiting for what? Messiah. Right? Now, what they don't realize is that he already came. Right? And they rejected him. As a matter of fact, let's go to John chapter 5. John 5, verse 43. John 5, 43. Yeshua speaking, I am come in my Father's name, and you receive me not. They didn't receive him. The Jews did not receive Yeshua. If another shall come in his own name, him ye shall receive. There's somebody else coming. We're going to get to that. There's somebody else coming who will establish himself in this third temple. That is the Antichrist, right? And that's what's going to happen. And so the Jews are waiting for their Messiah. The problem is when the person who they think is their Messiah shows up, it's not going to be him. All right, so that's verse 1. Verse 2, it says of chapter 11, but the court which is without the temple, leave out, don't measure it, for it is given unto the Gentiles. In the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. So the courtyard, forget about it. Don't worry about it. That's not ours. That's Gentiles got that, nothing holy about that. I was thinking about this. The Dome of the Rock is where the temple's supposed to go, right? And a lot of people think, the only part left of the original temple is the west wall, which is also called the Wailing Wall. And that's the only part left. Yeshua said there wouldn't be one stone left standing when he comes back. So that tells me that if in fact that west wall is part of the original temple that Yeshua is referring to, something's going to happen that's going to go away, right, before that happens. And so, yeah, the Dome of the Rock is there. But there's recent archaeology that's been looking at that site that says, when the Romans destroyed the temple in 70 AD, they did such a thorough darn job destroying this thing that we're not sure. These are archaeologists now. We're not sure that the Dome of the Rock is like where the Holy of Holies was. They're thinking that where the Dome of the Rock is might be where the courtyard was.
Hallelujah.
So that to me means you can still have your Dome of the Rock. We're building our temple over here. Maybe. They don't all agree on that, but some of them think that. I kind of think about this a little bit, and I don't want to go off into metaphysical stuff, but why does the temple have to be right there? Not over there, not across the street where we're parking our cars. Right here is where the temple has to be. This is where Dome of the Rock is. You can't have it here. Temple's got to be right here. There's something going on there. On that spot, that particular spot where the temple's supposed to be and probably over which the ark sat at that point. And I was reading some stuff about that today that was extra biblical, so I'll just leave it at that for now. But it kind of interests me. Why does it have to be right there? The temple was destroyed in 70 AD. How much longer until they built the Dome of the Rock? Anybody know?
At least 600.
I didn't know till this week. It was about 600 years. 690-ish is when they built the first Dome of the Rock. It got destroyed. They rebuilt it. But 690, so 600 years. Now, they built it over this big rock. That's why it's called the Dome of the Rock. Anybody know about that rock? It's kind of interesting. A lot of people believe different things about it. Some people believe that's where Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden was. I'm not one of those people, but they believe that. I think it's the Muslims believe that. It's where the Jews believe, and probably Christians who go with what the Jews say about archaeology, that is where Abraham almost sacrificed his son, right there on top of this rock that's evidently under there. That's where people say that's where God's presence has been felt the most strongly over time, repeatedly. Boom, that's where the ark was sitting above that and all of that. The Jews to this day face to the rock that's under the Dome of the Rock. They face in that direction when they pray. Which way do Muslims face? They also face, but they face towards Mecca. For most of them, it's towards the east, but for those who live west of it, or east of it, they face to the west, but they face towards Mecca. Matter of fact, I've been in some Muslim countries. Every Muslim country I've been in the hotel rooms, they have these little clear acetate circles or squares with a red arrow on it, and they're either glued on the ceiling, or sometimes in the nicer hotels you have to open up a desk drawer and it's glued to the desk drawer, and it points towards Mecca, supposedly. So I was with a bunch of special guys one time, and we were staying in a nice hotel, and we pulled it out and looked at it, and we were doing azimuths on it. Let's check the azimuth of this thing. Do you know they were all different? So one, they weren't horribly different. It wasn't like one pointed that way and one pointed that way, but they were. And so it's like, okay, that's interesting. And then this is true story. One of my buddies took his Leatherman and peeled off the arrow and turned it 90 degrees and glued it back down. That was like his little joke, but that's a true story. Anyway, the Jews pray towards the Dome of the Rock when they pray, and that's where the Muslims think Muhammad went to heaven from, that rock. And also he did something, I don't study Islam that much, but he did something called the night journey, and he took off from there too. It's a very holy spot for Islam, Judaism, and Christianity right there. But like I said, maybe the porch, maybe it's actually on the porch. Let me get back to Revelation 11. Oh, 40 and 2 months. How long is 40 and 2 months?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. It's 3.5 years that the Gentiles are going to tread the holy city, which is Jerusalem, underfoot. I submit, I know there's other people that have all these different theories. That hasn't happened yet, and it's not happening now. When the Gentiles, the non-believers, the great unwashed masses are treading Jerusalem underfoot for 3.5 years, that's going to be during the reign of Antichrist, and you're going to know it. When it happens. It won't be, I kind of think it is. All right. Verse 3. And I will give power. This is one of the coolest parts in Revelation right here. The two witnesses. I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. How long is 1,000? How long is that?
3.5.
That's 3.5 years. So the whole time the Antichrist is in power, these two witnesses are going to be prophesying. The Antichrist is in power, and yet they're speaking out against it. Kind of puts a cramp in your style when you're trying to be the big dude and you're all powerful and almighty, and these two yahoos are out here speaking against you the entire time. How powerful are you actually? If you're going to, and this is going to go through like phases, right? Well, we'll just let them say what they want to say. It doesn't matter. It's going to start bugging them. People are going to start trying to do something to these. He'll probably send people, hey, look, head of my secret corps, go take those guys out, all right? I'm tired of them. Okay, what are they going to do? What's it say they do?
Breathe.
They're going to breathe fire on them. I spent a lot of time on this. Is this metaphorical, or are they going to look like, mother of dragons or something? I think they're going to breathe fire on them. I think it's going to be amazing to see. There's going to be a lot more amazing things going on during this time, but they're going to breathe fire on them. It says, close air support, I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy this long, clothed in sackcloth. So they're powerful, but the fact that they're clothed in sackcloth means they're humble. They're going to be doing their prophesying, and prophesying doesn't mean foretelling the future necessarily. It can. It could also mean y'all better turn back to Yah, and that's what they're going to be saying. You need to turn back to Yah. But they're going to be doing it in a humble yet powerful way. And powerful in that if you mess with them, they're going to burn you alive. So who are these 2 witnesses going to be?
Elijah.
Who do you say?
Elijah.
That's one. Moses. Anybody got another contender?
Enoch.
That's my contender. All right, we're going to talk about that. So people say, and you look at it, one of them is Moshe, because they do similar things to what Moses did. Remember, we were just talking about Pharaoh, right? When he was in Pharaoh, he turned the water to blood. It says here they do that. Where was they? 2 altars, and if any man hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth and devours their enemies, and any man will hurt them, then will be killed. They have the power to shut heaven that it rain not. And in the days of their prophecy, they have the power over waters to turn them to blood and smite the earth with all plagues, as a plague of rain, a plague of lice, a plague of frogs. Moshe certainly did that, right? Who else shut up the heavens and didn't let it rain? Elijah.
Yeah, Elijah.
Yeah, Jah. I just say Jah to make it easier. Let's go to Luke 4:25. There's other places, but that's just an easy place to see it. Luke 4:25. Luke 4:25. But I tell you of a truth, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elias, that's Elijah, when the heaven was shut up for 3 years and 6 months, and a great famine throughout all the land. So see, Elijah already had no rain for 3.5 years. That's kind of interesting because we're talking about 3.5 years here in Revelation, and some people think it was going to be, one of these 2 witnesses is going to be Elijah. I agree with those people. Did Elijah die? Nope. Let's go to 2 Kings, 2 Kings, chapter 2. Verse 11. If somebody gets there before me, there's 1 Kings. Hey, come on. 2 Kings 2. Verse 11, I'm there. And it came to pass as they still went on, Elisha and Elijah, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. He didn't die. He got sucked up bloop, into heaven in a whirlwind of fire and a chariot of fire or whatever. I think Elijah's one of the witnesses. Elijah didn't die. Yah called him home, said, come here, like literally. Did Moshe die? I've heard people say he didn't die. Somebody tried to convince me he didn't die one time. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 34. Let's put this to rest. That's Numbers. Deuteronomy 34. I think I said 24. Deuteronomy 34. Dun, dun, dun. 34. Where am I going? 5. Deuteronomy 34, verse 5, and then we're going to move forward, I think, from there. Wow, 32 is a long one. There we go. So, Moses, the servant of Yahweh, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of Yahweh. And he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, over against Beth Peor, but no man knows of his sepulchre unto this day. And Moshe was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. So he was still as strong as he was when he was 35 years old, when he was 120, but he died. Moshe died. Now, you remember Yeshua on the mount, it's called the Mount of Transfiguration? Who's he talking to there? Do y'all remember? Moses and Elijah. So he's talking to Moshe, he's talking to Elijah. So that to me is a pretty good argument that it could be Moshe and Elijah, because they kind of showed up once again already. You know, it's like, it's my go team, right? You know, y'all's like, all right, you two, go down there and talk to Yeshua. All right, guys, go down there and prophesy against that Antichrist. I mean, it could be that. But Moses died. Elijah didn't die. Who else didn't die? Enoch. Let's go to Genesis chapter 5. Dun, dun, dun. All the way back in the beginning. There's 3. Genesis chapter 5, verse 23. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years, which if you read all the people before him and after him, that's really short. That's not long. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. He didn't die. Enoch's walking around, he's 325 years old, and all of a sudden he's not there. Because God took him. It doesn't mean like you hear some people say today, well, God took my husband, meaning, you know, he died. No, God took him. And that's why I think it could be Enoch, Elijah and Enoch, because those two guys, Yah physically plucked from the earth, and they didn't die. But I think there's a good argument to be made for Elijah and Moshe. At the end of the day, today, at this sermon, it doesn't tell us who they are. It doesn't say who they are, and it could, but it doesn't. The word doesn't say, and so that tells me that right now it doesn't matter who they are. It might not even be Elijah. Like everybody agrees Elijah is one of them, but it might not be. It's just similarities to what Elijah did in the past. I think it's going to be Elijah and Enoch. We'll see. We will know when we see them. And I think there's a good chance that some of us here could be around during that time and see them. And if you think about it, that'll be pretty cool, because those guys who are prophesying that people are trying to kill, that are just going like, not today, and burn them up, they're on our side, right? So that's kind of cool. That's like, yeah, team, or whatever. All right. Those are the 2 witnesses. They have the power, they have the plagues, verse 7. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit, this is Satan, will make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. So Satan kills them. See how powerful he is? He finally kills them. Doesn't matter. Read what it says. When they have finished their testimony, they're done doing what Yah wanted them to do. They had a mission. It's 3.5 years long. He sends them to do their mission. When they're done, Yah's like, time for you guys to come home again, and he lets Satan kill them. Now, Satan will make a big deal about it, but it's okay. They finished their mission. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Mitzrayim, Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. They're calling Jerusalem, they're talking about Jerusalem, 3 different things. That great city, when they say that great city, what does that bring to mind? Babylon. Because it's going to be Babylon-esque at the time. It's going to be outrageous in Jerusalem during this 3.5 years when this happens. They also say it's like Sodom. Because it's going to be like Sodom. It's just going to be out of control, off the hook, off the chain, whatever. And it says it's like Mitzrayim, because when we were in Mitzrayim, we were oppressed horribly. So these are the descriptors of what Jerusalem is going to be like at that time. And you know, there's Israelites today that are Messianic, Torah observant, Hebrew roots, whatever, that are like, we need to move to Jerusalem. I'm like, dude, my master told me, when you see these things start happening, leave Jerusalem and get up into the mountains. It's not a good place to be. I don't want to go there and have to run away. I think I'll just stay here until he tells me what we have to do. But that's what that means there. Verse 9. And the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half. So it's interesting. They testify for 3.5 years, and then their bodies lay in the street for 3.5 days. That's just kind of cool how that is. And everybody sees their bodies. And you know, until 30 years ago, there wasn't really a way to do that. And then all of a sudden this thing called CNN happened, 24-hour news cycle that's on all the time. And now we have live streaming. And who else knows what's going to happen between now and then? It is now easy for the whole world to watch something for 3.5 days. And a lot of us just take that and go, yeah, I mean, you could just live stream it on Facebook. But 30 years ago, there was nothing like that. How's the whole world going to see something 24 hours a day? You just can't do it. Even satellites aren't working like that. So we are in a time now when all of this can happen, and that's how they're going to do it. They're just going to make it mandatory. There's talk that, you know, these smart TVs with the cameras in them and the sensors, and they watch you and they listen to you and they, Alexa, please do this, and Alexa's listening for you all the time. That's today. Go forward 10 years from now, there'll probably be some law you have to leave it on in your house. It has to be on, and dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. You'll see. Anyway, everyone's going to watch it. And while they're laying there dead in the street, which is also very rude, right? I mean, it's like spitting on the corpse of a dead body, or, God bless Eddie Gallagher, posing with a dead body. You know, you're not supposed to do that, right? It's like, that's uncouth. Well, they're letting them out there. They're not burying them. And so they're treating the witnesses badly. And it says, verse 10, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts to one another, because the two prophets that withheld the rain and spit fire on my cousin Cletus and did all these different things, they're dead. Look at them, they're dead. Yeah, party, dead witness party. I mean, that's what these people are going to be doing. They're going to be stoked. I'm telling you, you know, we read in the word, no